A child, simply known as the boy, tries to scoop a woman's brains back into her skull. Her lifeless eyes stare vacantly. His efforts are null. There is text here that reads, "The boy's mother was dead. She had been right by his side a moment ago, but now she was completely gone from this world." It meant the death of the boy he had been, and the end of the world he had lived in. This is the opening to one of the most miserable stories I've ever read. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk with you all about The Horizon. This is a series that I've just started reading. I read the first volume of this series. I was initially going to make this video basically all 3 volumes of The Horizon in one huge video, but as I started reading it, I ended up writing a ton about just the first volume of it, and I have so much that I want to say about this first volume that I'm just going to keep this video to the first volume, and then I do plan on doing volumes 2 and 3 and 2 separate videos, and I'm going to end up eventually talking about the whole series. Those may not come out for a while. Chances are the second part of it may not come out till next year, or if I have some time, I'll try to knock it out at some point in time before the end of 2024. But we're pretty quickly approaching the end of this year, so I can't make any promises as to what's going to happen there. But this was such a wild read, such a well-drawn story because there's so little dialogue. The dialogue is so sparse, but I'm going to cover the whole thing. I'll let you all know when I start getting into deep spoilers for anybody that wants to maybe, tune out or whatever, go read this first volume and then come back after they have. But I definitely highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. Let's talk about The Horizon. The Horizon is written and drawn by J.H., who also wrote The Boxer. I usually talk about manga on this channel, but this is a manhwa. This story is incredibly miserable and nihilistic. There are whole diatribes about how awful the world is and how we're all essentially living to die. It really reminds me of The Road, and wouldn't be at all surprised to learn Cormac McCarthy is an influence to some extent. Only this takes place right at the start of the post-apocalypse, not at the midst of it. Makes me think of Children of Men as well, where the world is slowly deteriorating and war looms ever closer as domestic terrorism takes place within the film's first 15 minutes. Something happened, but it is unknown what exactly that is. Corpses litter the streets, death abounding. There is no sign of life anywhere. Even within the boy's eyes, the life drains away as he realizes how futile his existence has become. He can't sleep at night because he has visions of the corpses lying dead in the street. He presses forward regardless, though towards what end, who could say? Survival seems the only constant. He takes a bag off a dead body, and it looks like a soldier tossed him a container of scraps. There is a line that summarizes the boy's fears, the utter helplessness he felt in the face of violence, and the crushing losses he could never get back, turned the night into a living hell for the boy. He eventually meets another straggler, a girl aptly named Girl, and this journey of one becomes a journey of 2. It kind of feels like the aftermath of a Civil War type of event, but it's told exclusively through the eyes of these young children. What they see and know about what is happening is what we see and know and understand about what led to this and how humanity is just barely surviving. It reminded me of one aspect of the film Come and See, where we're getting the brutal perspective of war through the eyes of a teenager in his early teens. The juxtaposition between the boy's deadened stare and the girl's teary-eyed one speaks volumes to their dispositions. She may have not yet experienced the same level of violence as the boy, Or she has, but it hasn't broken her spirit the way it has the boys. The sparse dialogue works really well for the story. Over explanation or excessive talking, like what I'm doing with this video, can ruin a story. The tale itself even acknowledges its own silence in a line that reads, "At first, the boy and girl walked without saying a word." So, what The Horizon makes me think of is Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I actually have right here. I got this on sale for like $6 on Amazon, and I was like, you know what, I need to buy this because I want to read. I have the graphic novel of The Road, and I want to read the Cormac McCarthy original before I get into the graphic novel. I think Cormac McCarthy, in some way or another, definitely did inspire The Horizon, given that in that I think the two leads are, you know, like father and son or whatever, or the man and the son, or the man and the boy or whatever. And in The Horizon, the two leads, the two characters that basically tell this story, are called the boy and the girl, and their names, as far as this first volume goes, their names are never said aloud. Maybe in the next volume, maybe in 2 or 3, their names, you know, will come out and we'll actually learn who they are. But what I do like about this series is that we're put, you know, pretty much front and center in the eyes of these two children experiencing basically the end of the world. And it's wild to see, you know, such a catastrophic thing, you know, happen in the eyes of someone so young, and that, you know, that age makes them more willing to accept adults, you know, and accept help from adults, and accept and want to think that adults can or will defend them. Only the boy doesn't really think that way because he knows better. He's seen what men are capable of, and the girl, I think, is the one who's more of the person who, more of the child, you know, who will inevitably get them hurt, as is, you know, the case in this volume. And I'm not going to say anything more about that, you know, for this part of the video. What I will say though is, going forward for the rest of this video, there's going to be full-on spoilers for all the stuff that comes next. So if you haven't read this thing yet and you want to cut it here and go read it and then come back, I totally understand that. But I wanted to make this at least somewhat accessible to people that haven't read it. So yeah, I totally understand if you want to cut out here. And for everybody else that sticks around, let's continue this incredible, just absolutely ruthless, beautiful as all hell looking story. The boy and girl encounter a strange man in a field, who upon seeing them comes shrieking up to them and begins to follow them wherever they go. Boy takes a water bottle from his satchel, and as he's taking a drink, the deranged man takes it from him and chugs it all the way down. He then drops his pants in front of the boy and girl and pees, making full, unbroken eye contact with them. They hatch a plan to escape the man, which doesn't go well at all, because as soon as they put some distance between them and him, a bomb goes off nearby. He wears dress pants, a white shirt, and a loose tie. It makes me think he was probably an ordinary man at one point, even a salary worker. He bore witness to what was happening all around him, and it broke him. As human beings, we all handle trauma differently. Some of us grow stronger from it, but some don't, and instead are scarred by it. After their first escape attempt, the disheveled man no longer takes his eyes off the boy and girl, even refusing to sleep just to make sure they don't try to escape him again. They have to take turns distracting him if one of them wants to secretly take a drink of water or eat, so as not to lose their food or drink to the man. As they grow tired of having to constantly work around him, if they want to eat or drink, the boy and girl hatch a plan to wait him out until he can no longer go without sleep. Once he caves under the heavy weight of exhaustion, that's when they'll run. However, this is slow in coming as the man is far more resilient than they gave him credit for. The girl collapses from thirst long before the man collapses from sleep deprivation, which is further exacerbated by the boy's constant taunting of him, forcing him to stay awake. They come upon a stream at one point, and the boy fills a water bottle to the brim, which he then tips to the girl's lips and has her drink deeply. It restores her somewhat, and they both encounter the man eating live frogs. The scene is absolutely disgusting to witness, but it doesn't seem to bother the boy or girl, as they've seen far worse atrocities at this point. They each take a frog of their own and make a small fire, over which they roast their frogs. Soon enough, after a continuous day-night cycle without rest, the man succumbs to a sleep deprivation. Only, instead of leaving him behind, like they had originally planned, the girl grows a heart and refuses to leave him. I can't help but feel like this will end terribly. This world has already proven to not give a good goddamn about these kids. If this world is as miserable as I feel like it will inevitably become, kindness can only be rewarded with suffering. In this post-apocalypse, only the selfish and most ruthless will survive. When I do these videos, I always like to make references to other things. Like I usually make a lot of film references, sometimes book references, as evidence to with me talking about Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I do think is a pretty huge influence in some way or another on this story. And another thing that I'm not going to say it's an influence because that came out this year and this came out a while ago, but kind of reminds me of like Civil War, the film Civil War, which I actually really enjoyed. There's elements in Civil War that I feel like are present in the Horizon, though, like I said, the Horizon predates Civil War. Makes me think of Fallout. Like, Fallout is one of my favorite video game series ever. That's another, like, post-apocalyptic sort of a series. And I love the Fallout TV series. I actually have two figures of Maximus and of Lucy from the Fallout TV series. I even had the Ghoul, but I gave that to my friend and editor, Justin. Things like Silo, the TV series Silo on Apple TV Plus is another one that I think is really well done. Crazy Food Truck is another one that's kind of post-apocalyptic, though I wasn't personally like huge fan of Crazy Food Truck. I read the first volume of it and kind of was like, you know what, I think I'm good. I don't really need to continue reading the series. I've talked about it before too in other videos. I'd say like that's a little more like campy, I guess if you will, where this is like a lot more dark, a lot starker, sort of like way more miserable. I'd say probably closer to like The Road or something. But overall, I have nothing but praise for this thing, and I'm super excited to read the next two volumes of it. Kind of reminds me of like Soloist in a Cage, which I highly recommend. I did a video about Soloist in a Cage. I don't even know how long ago now, probably last year. It was one of my favorite stories that I read last year, and yeah, let's keep going, man. I got plenty more to say about the Horizon, so if you want to stick around and keep listening to me jabber on about this thing, let's keep it going. This story features extended scenes that go on for several pages where there is little to no dialogue. However, you can pretty clearly see the characters' intentions. The boy grows jealous of a sort of relationship taking place between the girl and the man, which should come across as good-natured, since he has only tried to play around. He hasn't done anything inappropriate other than the time he pulled his pants down and peed in front of them, and stealing the boy's water bottle. Besides those two instances, he hasn't tried to harm either of them. Not yet. The boy doesn't trust him at all, and seeing the girl and the man growing closer definitely sets him off. While the boy and the girl scavenge the remains of some unfortunate dead bodies, the boy spots the glimmer of a blade. While the man is distracted, the boy takes the blade. The brilliant white, empty look in his eyes speaks to how broken he is. And now the only thing he could cling to, which is the girl, is being taken away from him. The boy doesn't want to lose the girl too, the way he lost his mother, and is pretty clearly willing to do anything to get her back to himself. There is a great bit of character development for the boy in Volume 1, where in the middle of the night, beside a fire, he tells the girl, "When I was on my own, nothing really bothered me. Even if I had died, I wouldn't have cared one way or another. But now, ever since I met you on that bus, everything worries me." He's never had anyone he's needed to protect, and at an age where he needed protection, that was stripped away from him, murdered by men at war for whatever unknown cause. Alright, so this will be the last interlude, and then I will show you the last part of this thing, which is the most upsetting part of it. And it's unfortunate, that it does happen, but I could see it. I feel like I could see it from like a mile away, this being a thing that could potentially happen within this story, as unfortunate as it is. But I feel like it's a thing that ends up opening up the girl's eyes, because I feel like part of her still held to her, childhood innocence, whereas the boy is like broken beyond repair and only kind of in a sense made half whole by being, beside the girl. But what this also made me think of, because I love just, throwing in things that it reminds me of. Anytime I do any sort of video like this, I always have to like bring up all the like, oh, it reminded me of this or reminded me of that. But it made me think of Stephen King's The Stand, which I read the book and then I went back and listened to the audiobook, and it's one of my favorite stories ever. It's like an insanely long book, dude. It's well over 1,000 pages, but it's so well written. And he actually did a lot of research. Stephen King did a lot of research when writing that story. Like, he talked to, I don't remember who the hell he talked to, but I think he talked to people that like were experts on whether or not you could survive, like a nuclear holocaust, or, how would people survive a nuclear holocaust, that sort of a thing. And he does a lot of research when he writes his stories, and that's something that I really respect, and that's one of the reasons that he's one of my favorite, writers ever. And I do highly recommend reading The Stand or listening to the audiobook or something. The TV shows, I don't think, do it like a ton of justice, because there's a lot that is lost in translation from, from the book to the screen. So I would 100% say, like, if you have the time to listen to like probably like a 40-hour probably like a 40-hour audiobook, or even, just sit there and read the novel, I highly recommend it if you're not all like strictly, like I only read manga or only read comics, or, that sort of a thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, it's highly recommended on my part. I think it is a well worthy read, and that's kind of a thing that I also feel kind of represents a sort of, this is the worst of humanity sort of a situation. But I don't think that even in that story, though there is like parts of humanity that are terrible, I don't think they're nearly as awful as they are in things like The Road, again, constantly bringing up The Road, or even in, The Horizon, or even The Walking Dead. The people in The Walking Dead are pretty awful, and the people in The Horizon are pretty awful, as evidenced, by the assault at the end of the story, and even by what ends up happening to the kids, at the end of the volume. So, and yeah, please enjoy the final part of this video. As the boy and the girl are getting closer, it seems in the same way that the boy was jealous of the man harbors resentment of the boy. In a brazen instant, the man smacks the boy's face hard, knocking him off balance into the grass. The man falls atop the girl, fully prepared to assault her. Just a child. She can't be more than 11, if that. You can see the betrayal in her eyes, because she gave this man the benefit of the doubt, and this is how he repays it. This is likely the end of her innocence, much in the way the boy had long ago lost his, and was a walking shell before meeting the girl and regaining his humanity through a need to protect her. In this way, the boy brandishes the combat knife he found under a body and leveling it at the man, he runs him through. At first, he does it just to get the man off the girl. The man hasn't fully begun his assault, though his pants are down. Then, once the man is off the girl, he continues to stab him, wild-eyed, letting the hate within him surge to the surface. The moment before this was such a beautiful one, where the boy and the girl are surrounded by fireflies, lighted up, and you kind of are sitting there reading it, expecting something terrible to interrupt it, and of course, it does. The man was a great villain because he represented the unknown. He hadn't tried to hurt the children, other than to take the water bottle from the boy. He was kind of a rabid dog that only bared his fangs, but never really bit until he did. The boy grew beyond his years once he had no choice other than to enter survival mode. However, it hadn't seemed like the girl was there yet. She hadn't experienced what he had, or seen it to the level he had. But after what happened to her, I can see that trust begin to wane in the future. I can see her begin to adapt to an us versus them sort of mentality, just like what the boy has. As soon as they escape one problem, they run right into another. The post-apocalypse is cruel, like bringing the Wild West back, where anything goes and no one is around to hold anyone else accountable. Roving bands of marauders still fight against whatever remnants of any military structure still remain. The boy and the girl are tranquilized by one such force, kidnapped and taken towards a city in the distance. As of the end of Volume 1, it is unknown what awaits them there. However, given how miserable and awful their journey thus far has been, I can't see it getting any easier now. They're headed straight into the mouth of the lion, into the pitch blackness. From there, escape is unlikely. Even if they break free from their chains, extricated like a rabbit from a snare, the psychological damage is done. Much like the beginning of the story explained, the boy he had been was gone with his mother's life, and now what would come about is someone who survives no matter the cost. From stabbing a raving madman to death, or escaping from what appears to be religious fanatics. We will have to find out what happens next in Volume 2.